Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine Interview Series. I'm Jason Masker, Field CTO with Stratascale, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today I have the pleasure of talking to Egor Sadovnic, Senior Manager of Advisory Services and Data Analytics at Crowe LLP. Egor, good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about tooling, because just in the context, right, comes up often. And to many of these leaders, it seems like as soon as we bought you your expensive Hadoop cluster, you were moving to Spark, and now you want to go to, something else, or GCP, or now we're going cloud, or we came out of the cloud, we're going back to the cloud.
Right.
How do you help to rationalize through that? And give us a general feeling about the tooling. How important is it? Does everyone need to keep up with every shift that's going on? I mean, modernization and innovation can sometimes be different swim lanes, right? So, what's your general take on that? I guess let's start from the how we get leadership there, and thoughts on and advice on tooling in general.
Right. So I'll start. I'll work on the tooling aspect of it, because when it comes to the leadership on board, oftentimes, unfortunately, that group of top tier people and decision makers are like the number one target for a lot of this buzzwordy marketing. Like you had mentioned, you have the cluster 2.0, or the dashboards are dead, and like you have like 5 platforms reach out to you that say the same thing, and you look underneath it. It's like, what is it dependent on? Oh, clean data. Okay. Well, I don't know if we have that. Oh, integrated systems kind of collaborated into one pool. We don't have that yet. Right. So a lot of people don't have that bridge to reality. And so they oftentimes and sometimes make unwarranted investments in certain tools that they don't necessarily have the proper acumen to wrangle. And that can lead to kind of unfortunate dynamics where it's like, hey, we bought this platform and we can't actually use it. So what do we do with this, right? No one can even migrate it. So at that top tier level, it seems to me like it's like a mixture of decisions, and the real kind of technology leaders tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side nowadays. From what we're seeing across our clients, they tend to be a little bit more measured with kind of the investments that they're making, especially CTOs and CIOs that we work with continuously. They are pretty conscientious of the fact that there's a whole sea of offerings, and oftentimes reach for things that are either familiar in their experience or seem to have a track record across different organizations they've been a part of. So in terms of how important it is to keep up with that, I think it's a fine line. I'm going to be honest with you, because there is a core set of foundational technologies that you can use to meet 95% of your needs today. And a lot of the buzzwords around like AI, machine learning, just kind of like that black box is typically so far out of an average organization's reach technologically from a resource perspective that it's safer to block that out and establish a core foundational competency across your data. And you don't really need ultra expensive tools for that. You don't really need the cutting edge kind of objective tools that don't necessarily have the alignment with the business needs today.
I've heard that feedback from different CDOs about coaching the business on focusing on the business, not the tools, and let the data people decide the tools to address. Don't tell us we need a model to do this. Tell us what we need done, right? And keeping folks in their lanes. So that said, you mentioned these platforms are being sold, making claims, and it's kind of that. We're seeing more of a conservative vibe. I've seen that as well out there. That can close doors of entry as well, right? That kind of gives some pause, and it's a little bit harder to break through and get momentum when there's this concept of, I don't know, I've kind of been sold that before, right?
Right.
How do you have a strategy to quickly bring that into alignment? What do they need to see early, often, to kind of gain that confidence in the direction you're leading them, and in the direction they need to go with data?
Great question. So that actually kind of comes back to the business's contextualization of their pain points. I know I spoke a little bit about that earlier, and The reason why that sometimes goes missed or awry is because you already have legacy infrastructure investments, but then you have potentially new people that are kind of like jamming together, but not necessarily kind of blending together. And so you get this discord, like the storming, the forming aspect of it, right? New leadership, old leadership, kind of bringing together kind of different disparate data sets. And one of the things that they all have in common, because they're all writing on the same foundational data, they have the same data points, the same data problems. It's kind of creating that corporate dictionary, that corporate discussion, right? So to speak, around an alignment rather around, well, what is the actual problem? And then when you align everybody around what is problem A and what are some potential solutions for it, it's much easier to have that conversation. And then what do people need to see in order to kind of quantify and qualify success, and how we enable that as a group, just to kind of tie it back in with kind of what we do. We oftentimes don't want to sell. Strike that. We do want to sell it for the ready parties, but the big bill on an implementation so oftentimes what we do is we come in and we offer a strategic angle in evaluation combined with a proof of concept. And like I said earlier, Agile and Scrum methodologies allow for us to deliver in about a week cadence. So people are actually seeing results, tangible outcomes. Oftentimes these technology projects and processes, they tend to just elongate in time. And you'll have great conversations and momentum. 6 months later, you don't have anything you can see. A year later, you still don't have anything to see. And then 18 months in, right, you've got something, but you're not sure how to use it. You kind of lost that steam. So really kind of getting in there early and making the biggest impact possible with the data available and creating a foundation for what the future looks like seems to penetrate a lot of those divisions, because we're kind of taking out the different disparate backgrounds of people and putting them together and equating them to their actual data reality today.
It's interesting. So you mentioned a few times Scrum and that kind of methodology, doing sprints, right? So that actually becomes that motion becomes super important to just regular touch
and
points.
I want to add one more note there, because the reason why it's so fundamental, and one of the leaders of our company at Crowe LLP, Kevin Havorka, fantastic mentor. One of his most important lessons that he taught me ultimately was that if you go to a quality tailor, right, you go get measured, you come in the door, you got your measurements, you feel good, and then your tailor gives you updates on where you are. If you're getting a custom suit, or if you're getting a custom shoe, getting that early preview, that early feedback is so important to the actual process of engagement as a customer, and not being surprised by things that don't fit when you're ready to go to that wedding, when you're ready to go to that event, is paramount to the success of the entire execution and the entire strategy. And so that always resonates with me when we're working with clients. How quickly can we get to some results? How quickly can we show progress and get the client's engagement with it? Tends to bring more people to the table and really lead to higher success stories and rates.
Yeah, and that alignment is just important. I like that emphasis you're putting on that communication and continuous, really, synchronization. How important do you feel this is to the overall motion of digital transformation? We know that digital has driven kind of the conversation that businesses have been having with their technology. Data seems foundational to that, right? How do you fit that in with the overall strategy, maybe with applications? And we have initiatives all over the place, right?
Right.
How do you fit that into priorities, and where do you see that? What role do you see data playing with all of the above?
It's paramount. It's paramount, because the number one issue we see, and again, I'm coming at this from like a reporting aspect of it, right? I'm trying to kind of elevate it out of the strategy realm, because you're kind of taking it from just straight up, hey, we know about the business, we understand the business. Now you're abstracting it into a new layer where it's kind of like, well, how does that fit within all of your other technological advances, right? So I can't necessarily speak to that higher level, but at the foundation, oftentimes there are quite a few reporting silos and data silos, which tend to naturally create these factions. And one of the most important aspects of defactioning, right, your entire platform or your entire organization, is to actually break down those barriers, right, and kind of bring people together around a common data culture. And really that starts with having a common dictionary. So one of our key deliverables is taking and creating a corporate metric. So the corporate metric dictionary tends to be something that is often overlooked in development, because when you really think about what does one metric mean to 3 different departments, right? They might have different definitions. And when they gather for leadership strategy, deeper layer conversations, if they can't agree on that one metric's definition or how to measure it, how it measures business success, what's happening to them? They're entrenched, they're hardening in their silos. So kind of having that cohesion at the base definition of your business, so descriptive and diagnostic analytics, having a wrangle on that tends to feed a lot more collaborative aspects to that. And that, to answer your question directly now, that then permeates into other technological investments, because you have fewer groups vying for technology that doesn't necessarily meet everybody's needs, right? And so instead of focusing on just that one niche application, you might have a real reason to have that, sure, for a specific group of people. But if you're trying to get something with the impression that you're going to meet half the organizational needs, but it really is going to be underutilized, that's stemming from a lack of data culture alignment overall.
Well, thank you, Egor. Great points, and thank you for joining me in your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.